Inner Quest explores various pathways through which you can connect with the infinite wisdom of the universe and apply it to personal, professional, and spiritual growth. This program, featuring accomplished practitioners, educators, and authors, is provided by Infinity Foundation, an innovative center for holistic studies and research. We invite you to share this journey with us.
Hello, welcome to Inner Quest. My name is Jay Stone, your host for today, and our guest is Laura D. Spain. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Jay.
Laura is a focusing trainer, certified both by the Focusing Institute and Focusing Resource, Inc. Laura is a single mother of 2 teenagers. Laura, please tell our audience about yourself and your focusing practice.
Okay. Well, in my practice, the nut of it is to really provide guidance and support for individuals who are seeking to find their way through a difficult time. And the type of guidance that I provide is to get into connection with their inner wisdom, to really connect deeply and enduringly with the wisdom that they have inside of themselves. So as I do that, I am truly a set of additional hands just helping and supporting my clients.
Now, was there something in your life that led you to focusing?
Absolutely. The truth is that I completely stumbled upon focusing sort of out of trust, sight unseen, that at a very difficult time in my life in which I had stumbled across a whole series of really life earthquakes, divorce, the death of my ex-husband, and some significant challenges in my own health. A trusted friend said, you know, here's this class. And I really think that it's exactly the sort of thing that you were talking about wanting to have in your life. And so I took the class, and it turned out that it was focusing.
Where did you take the class?
Right here in the Chicago area, downtown Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And the class was a training that lasted for 9 months, and it was offered by one of the original students of the developer of the focusing method, which was also right here in Chicago where focusing was developed.
And who was the developer of focusing?
Okay. So focusing is a process that has to do with sort of an innate knowing, innate wisdom. So I want to be very careful as I talk about this to really separate the two things, that there is something that is a natural, innate sense that we all know in different forms. We might know it as intuition, we might know it as our inner guidance, we might know it as that instincts, something in your stomach that tells you when you're in the right place, the gut feeling. And so there was an individual who was both a philosophy student and a psychology student at the University of Chicago, Eugene Genland. And he was involved in a study in which they were observing different patients in psychotherapy and what the outcomes were. And what Gene noticed is that certain individuals progressed very well and others seemed like they were stuck in the same place. And he got really curious about why that was. And his observation of making all these repetitive notations about what was happening in the individual sessions was that he noticed that the people that progressed in a therapy session at some point in time in the interaction with the therapist had a tendency to do something like this, to close their eyes and to just sort of sense inside and go, I wonder, let me see what that feels like. And seem to have just this innate ability to connect with something that was inside of themselves, that they could resonate with the therapist and with their situation, and that the people who weren't progressing didn't have that ability. So,
well, I think we all have that ability because there's a cycle in the brain between the amygdala and the hippocampus. The amygdala is outward focus, and the hippocampus is more inward focus. amygdala will gather information, and the hippocampus will process the information when that's active.
Yes.
So we're biologically programmed to focus inward if we follow our natural rhythms and cycles of our brain and our mind.
So I think ability is probably the wrong word. They didn't have a strong skill set, or perhaps even had, if you're familiar with Don Miguel Ruiz and his book, The Voice of Knowledge. I mean, I know his The Four Agreements is his most well-known book, but in The Voice of Knowledge, he talks about the domestication of the human animal. And so his point is that what we call knowing and knowledge tends to be very much based here. Intellectually.
Thoughts.
And not so much based in the body, which could be everything corporeal, including the physical substance of your brain. It could include all the energy fields around your body. And in the process of domestication, or whatever you want to call it, I think Don Miguel Ruiz is a lovely example of observations in this area, that certain individuals, maybe it's better to say they lose touch, because I think as infants we're probably all born completely in touch with our inner knowing. That's why kids kick and scream when they're first born. They know exactly how they feel.
Well, and they also cry when they're hungry, or cry when they want to go to sleep, or cry when they need to be changed.
Exactly. And that as you are socialized and you learn ways of interacting, both in your family situation, whatever's going to help you to be a successful and surviving member of your family, in your immediate community context, and in the world, all sorts of social influences. And this is just one of a series of things that might draw you away from that sense, might interrupt for some people that skill set. And maybe there's a choice that's made to pick a different skill set to emphasize. And that skill set might have to do with physical strength, that skill set might have to do with intellectual prowess, it might have to do with a lot of things. But for one reason or another, in these individuals that Jean was observing, there was clearly a group that did not choose to go inside, or perhaps did not value that, might even have been discounting, might even have been feeling something in the gut, but not knowing how to value that and turn to it.
This research was, what, initially done in the 70s?
In the 60s.
All right, in the 60s. Has there been follow-up research on this, do you know? Because this is very valuable.
It's incredibly valuable.
Because not only is that important what goes on in a therapy session, but what people do in their day-to-day lives. You know, we all, you know, have minor problems, sometimes major problems, but if we have some method, some means, we don't have to end up going to the therapist for everything. Right.
And in all honesty, the Focusing Institute hasn't really, which the Focusing Institute is the organization that ultimately Jean created to help bring focusing out into the world by helping people to understand how to train individuals.
Have you ever met Jean?
I haven't, but I will be meeting him in November for the first time.
Well, good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you. I've trained with two of his original students that were his students in the 60s. My original, the person who introduced me to focusing was one of Jean's original students. And you might have noticed that one of the things my bio says is that I'm certified as an interrelationship focuser. And then here's this work by Jean called Focusing, and what the heck, what's the difference? So as one of the really beautiful things about focusing and the Focusing Institute is how it embraces the diversity of approaches to getting in contact with that sense inside. So, for instance, the first individual I trained with really showed me pretty much just exactly the way Jean developed the, I would say, tools for helping people to learn how to come back to their inner knowing when they've learned how to walk away from it.
So talk a little bit about how you use focusing on yourself, how you use focusing to help heal and guide and direct yourself.
I use focusing